This is going to be an advanced tutorial on how to do set extension using Photoshop and grain sync. So we'll get grain added back to generated still imagery that we'll add to top and bottom of this right here. So this is a 16 by 9 placed in a 9 by 16 timeline up here, portrait mode. And the first thing I do before I even go into Fusion on this, I generally suggest, I like working inspector, retime and scaling set to crop, so that way there's no scaling happening that changes as I change resolution over in the Fusion page, which is what we're going to actually do. So you might just rough it in here like this. And this is graded 709 footage like you'd get in commercials in the US. I go to the Fusion page, and the first thing I'm going to do before I even work on changing the canvas or the resolution of this is, if we zoom in close, you'll see there's lots of grain in here. And so to actually be able to extract that grain and add it to generated still imagery, we need to denoise the footage first. So I'll do that using Neat Video, Shift Space, Reduce Noise. And once if you work with it with linear imagery a lot, just make sure at the bottom left here you have this set to gamma corrected if it's 709 like this is today. I'll hit Auto Profile. I'll let it choose, a section of the black TV there. You can see how much it's going to take away. Sure, that's fine. Not a big tutorial right now on noise reduction, other than you'll see that cleaned things up pretty good, so that when we paint and work on a still image, we're not working on frozen grain. It's been removed, we'll add it back later. The next thing is we need to extend the tops and bottom of this to fit on a 9 by 16 canvas. Tool to do that, Fusion will be crop, C-R-O-P. Load that in the viewer, and you can just use the Y size over here to extend the tops and bottoms. Now, it pins it down here to the lower left, so if you say keep centered, you'll get extension on both top and bottom. Now here's something that maybe there's a better way of doing this. I don't know how much extension do I need in my canvas here to fit what was set up here on the edit page. But what I can do easily is I could set my own 9 by 16 background here and see, do I have enough set extension set up? And the way I would do that is I just take a background node. This is just a temporary thing to see how much I need for the extension. I'll go to the Image tab, uncheck Auto Resolution, change this to 1080 by 1920, and then I will merge this cropped version over that background. And then if I adjust the scale, I'll just adjust the scale in the merge tool itself. We'll be able to sort of see where we're at with it. Let's say, for instance, in this example, we need to see all of the edge of, why don't we say, realistically, maybe this is how far we need to see. So we have the edges of the TV, and I need to fill out all of these top and bottom here. What you'll notice, if you lay this over the exact pixel dimensions that are needed, this green box around the outside currently represents this crop node, how far I've extended it. And so if I left it at this and I filled this all in with generated pixels, I'm not going to have enough at the very, very top or very, very bottom. So all I need to do is go back to the crop tool and give it a little bit more. You notice I've already extended this as far as the slider goes, but it can go much further. If I just click into there and I start using, I'm using the cursor button to extend that further, you'll see now, if I take a look at the crop tool, it's a little bit higher than it was before. And so maybe I even need more than, maybe we'll go all the way to 5,000 tall and see, does that, with that scaling that we had in there, get us, it looks like that, maybe, oh, not even quite yet. So even just a little bit more. So 5,200. And there we go. So now if I do this set extension, I will have pixels all the way top and bottom based off of that placement. The whole reason I did that was just to see how much do I need this top and bottom extended for lining it up. If you know of a better way to do this, please let me know. This is what I've discovered that can work, but I'm always up for new ways. So to do this set extension, Just with this pixel resolution here, that's what we're going to work with. I will right click on the viewer, say save image, and then I'm going to call this one, let's see, I've already practiced on a couple of these others. I'll call this one version 3, and then the format that makes sense to me for an uncompressed 709 image would just be a PNG. That should work fine, especially for Photoshop, where we're going to have it generate Firefly extension. Okay, so I'm loading that TV extension 3, and to make a selection of just the image, I would command click the layer, and then I would do command shift I to invert the selection. Come down here to this contextual deal, and I would say a generative fill is what I'm interested in doing. And then Firefly fill and expand, sure, that's fine with me. And I'll just say generate, and we'll see what happens. I still don't know how I feel about this tool, but like from an ethical perspective, but this could give you a result pretty quickly. So there we go. There's different options you could click through. Maybe choose one. Sure, that's fine. I'll hit save. Save this as a PSD, and then I'll go ahead and also save or export this as a quick export as a PNG as well. Give this an iterative number, and we'll call that good for Photoshop. Best way to load this, in my opinion, is to get this loaded as a new media in, you just drag from the Finder into your flow, something like that. And then once this is in here, what we could do is, well, we don't need this background doing this thing anymore. But what we do need to figure out is what's the alpha channel, so that we can take a look at just these, just the live footage. And this crop node has an alpha coming off of it, but I always like, anytime I'm using alpha off of some other node, I like to specifically state that in the comp. Show your work, right? So bitmap tool is going to do that. Take the bitmap off of here, and then I'll just invert it. So the thought here is that I am only interested, as far as this generated imagery, in this section of it. So that's how and why I was using the tool like that. Now to stick these back together, just, A over B, B over A. The only thing is, this merge, we had done that scaling bit in there. We'll just reset that to there. So that should work fine. I'm probably going to actually switch this. It makes more sense to have your footage be the background than the extension. Now it's time to start thinking about, how do we regrain this? So if we zoom in close, and let's see, let's find a section down here. You'll see all that moving grain and noise, especially if you look at the different channels. How do we get that exact grain across? Well, that's the tool called Grain Sync from Milo Labs that I've talked about before. You can get it from We Suck Less, the Stake Underwater website, and I'm sure he'll have a tutorial on it at some point. But yeah, I'll just load that up. Grain Sync is the tool. Milo Labs, Emilio Sapia. Just so you're aware, it requires 3 different things installed. It requires a .settings file that goes in your macros folder. It requires a fuse that goes in your fuses folder, and the Grain Sync itself, this .fu, goes in the config location. All the information can be found at this website, which I'll post a link to at the bottom of this YouTube tutorial, whatnot. So the tool itself needs an original image, a degrained or denoised version, and then the comp input and the mask. So that's another reason I pulled this mask out separately. So to get started, let's give it some data to work with. Oh, the other thing that's really good to know is the tool works best in linear. And so none of the footage I'm working with, because it's like commercial style footage, is linear. So how do I feed it linear images? Use a gamut node. That would be the solution. So the gamut node, as long as you choose like source is 709 scene, remove gamma, that will extract the gamma, and then we'll put it on again at the end of the flow. So the thought here is I would just, Yeah, I've already got this cropped version of the image that's been denoised there. That is now going to be linear. I'll use another copy of this so that I'm also removing the gamma from this Photoshop extended version of it. So this is our comp right now. Then I also need to denoise just the noise reduced version of the footage, which actually could just be grabbed from here. So if you look down through the flow, we've got a crop, there's our denoised. And then I also need the same resolution in linear cropped without the denoise. So to do that, what I think I'll do is I'll just take this crop node, Command C, Command V, pull it off the original, and then turn it into linear by pasting that over there. Got it? So this is our noise reduced, here's our comp in linear, and here is our original. So to plug these in properly, I will just right click as I extract. This is our original input. This is our denoised input. And then this is our comp input. And I'm going to go back to the first frame to set this up. The tool right now is going to need to be set to whatever reference frame you want this to work off of. I'm going to say it's going to be starting off of frame 0. That's the one I did our paint or extension on. And then the next thing you do is you set up this box. This like reference box is going to help with this grain response curve. And the important thing to pay attention to when you position and place this box on screen is it needs to be in an area that actually had real live footage on it. So it might not be a bad idea to view the actual like moving footage on a textureless area of it. Maybe something, I don't know, right around there might be not a bad idea. Because if you did it up here, there's no grain for it to get a sample of. So yeah, there's that. But once that is positioned on a piece of the footage, you can just hit match, and you'll see it draws out this response curve that's going to actually grab the actual grain from this section here. And then all you need to do that's left, I'm going to load the results of grain sync back into here. You can see really clearly right now we're getting doubled up version of the grain down here below. With it off, it just adds the original grain back on. But with scatter on, you'll notice in this extension part, once it starts to think through and make the comparisons between the denoise and not denoise, we've got this all filled in perfectly with the same grain. So it extends down there into the floor really good, and it's animated moving grain. The only last piece of the tool that you got to pay attention to is it's working on the entire image right now. So it's doubling up on grain that's in the main middle section. And so you want to restrict it to just this top and bottom. Well, that's why I pulled this mask off of here. So just right click and stick this mask into the effect mask of grain sync. So now when I take a look, of course it takes a second to think. This is not a super fast plugin, but it's pretty awesome and accurate. Now it's not affecting this area down here. It's only affecting the area that we've taken from that mask. To get this out to the edit page and render, I would just take a gamut node here, Command C, Command V, paste this down here, and we just, instead of remove gamma on this one, we're going to add the 709 gamma back on it, and then go back out to media out. Before I even do that, you might even come up here and take a look and inspect. This takes a bit of a beefy, this is a lot of RAM is needed to render these frames, because now it's a 5200 tall pixel image. But it's getting the exact moving grain that was from the other parts of the image. You may have some seams, but honestly, I would be mindful, like if you got to work quick and it's way on the side here and you're going to crop it to that center again, I wouldn't pay attention to those because you're just wasting your time. So to render on the edit page, make sure your media out's connected. I can't even see an image because again, it takes a while to get this thing rendered. I could now right click and then I would say render in place. And the only thing I might suggest you not do unless you just have the resources to take care of this, is I probably would not render at source resolution on, especially as people keep shooting with higher and higher res. If this is a social media clip that you need to extend, just leave the rest of these settings here as is. Maybe you choose 444 for the codec, but I'm cheap. I'm not going to do that today. So just give it a location and it will give you a chance to go get a coffee. We'll take a look at this right after. And it's done. I was going to also mention, if you are not interested in using grain sync, you could just denoise the footage and use like film look creator grain instead. And it would be a synthetic grain, but it would be consistent across the entire image and it might render faster. So that's another option. This is for those perfectionists that need to make sure we're matching the original grain like completely. I'll show you if we take a look at the different channels now that that has rendered. You know, you'll be able to see. I zoom in here, and we've got that moving grain all over the extended parts of the image. Hopefully this shows up on the YouTube recording. Yeah, there's some sections here. Maybe it's a little heavier right here than it is down here in this channel, but the middle is the original completely. Let's check another channel. Why don't we choose blue channel? You know, at least it's not a completely, you know, static frame hold sort of thing that, you know, a beginner might do. So that's kind of the gist of it. If I ever needed to reframe this, because I did not render this at source resolution, you need to come in here, decompose to original, do your reframing here and your transform effects and that sort of stuff. But hopefully that's helpful.